Hi, everyone. Welcome to Octane 21 and Ask the Expert session. I'm Chael Banks, Vice President of Global Services, and I'm joined here by my colleagues Pragya, Joe, and Dave from the Professional Services team. Got an exciting panel discussion today. We're asking the professional services experts some of the most common questions we receive from our customers. These span both workforce and customer identity, and they really come from some common challenges we tend to see out in the ecosystem. So now let's take a shot at meeting the experts. Pragya, you're up first.
Thanks, Gail. Hi, everyone. This is Pragya Seth. I'm an architect with the services team here at Okta. I have been doing identity and access management for the past 10 years, with the last 5 years at Okta, so it's been a really fun time here. I work with our customer identity customers mainly, but also deal with some of the workforce identity use cases, and happy to chat about some of those scenarios today.
Hey everyone, this is Raghunathan. I'm also a services architect here at Okta. Um, I started off my career primarily as a developer, started doing a lot of identity integrations, and for the last almost 5 years, I've been here at Okta and dealt with primarily workforce identity when we started off. And right now, it's a mixed bag, both customer identity and workforce. Although I do get a lot of interesting customer identity use cases, and I'm happy to talk about my experiences with these particular implementations with all of you. Thank you.
Yeah, hi everyone. Dave Fend here, principal architect with Okta. I'm coming up on my 5-year anniversary with Okta in April. Prior to Okta, I spent an additional 15 years in identity management. Uh, During my time with Okta, I've worked with some of the world's largest organizations and probably had experience in about 100 different deployments to date. So glad to be here.
Thanks, Dave. You all are in very good hands with this crew of experts. Here you'll find a list of topics that we'll cover today. They span both workforce, as I said, and customer identity use cases. And if you're watching live, this team will be available through chat throughout this entire session. So with that, let's just jump right into the questions. Dave, first question is for you. It's around general architecture. I plan to use Okta for both workforce and customer identity implementations. What are the recommendations you have around using a single or multiple tenants?
Sure, thanks, Gail. That's actually a really great question. This is a scenario that I encounter frequently, and I'm pretty emphatic on the answer. You want to use separate tenants. We didn't put our external users in our corporate Active Directory, and we shouldn't put them in our workforce instance of Okta either. If for no other reason, you're ensuring that your external users cannot get into your private internal resources. But beyond that, it'll make it so much easier in your implementations and it'll help you succeed. You'll have more flexible options around configuring different login pages, emails, etc. for your applications, where branding is going to play such a critical role. So again, short answer is use separate Okta tenants.
That's great, David. It's always good to have very discrete or distinct opinions about things. It certainly helps the customer base. So thank you very much. Moving on to the second question. It's around Okta's move to a platform. So Joe, this one's for you. How does the Okta platform handle high traffic customer identity clients?
So we're coming across a lot of these implementations day to day. As Okta moves towards acquiring WLOs, the world's largest organizations, we see that scale is top of mind. Everybody wants to know how we handle scale. So I see it as primarily there could be three sort of use cases. The first and most common use case is when you're migrating from your legacy system onto your Okta platform, and we're talking about tens of millions of users, how we do that migration. The second is for these large e-commerce platforms or learning platforms that have millions of users and the authentication, within a minute you have hundreds and thousands of authentications. Normally for a workforce client, our base authentication is, I think, capped at 600 calls per minute. But when you talk about SIAM clients, especially the larger ones, it goes into the tens of thousands. So how we handle that. And the other use case is I've seen this a lot with the utility companies where there's burst traffic, right? It's not a sustained load. If you have a weather-related disaster and we have the utility companies, the traffic just spikes all of a sudden, and you cannot really plan for that, right? This is act of God, force of nature. So in terms of migration, during the migration procedure, the professional services team works hand in hand with your IT organization to walk you through the migration process. We can get the rate limits up for the migration. We can provide you with the tooling necessary to do the migration. Sometimes clients prefer to use their own. So that's a very guided and controlled process. Once the users are in there, and we talk about the second use case where it's hundreds of authentications, hundreds of thousands of authentications a minute, I think Okta has come up with dynamic scale. It's been here for quite a while now. So a lot of our SIAM customers prefer, or rather they have to use that dynamic scale SKU that enables them to buy multiples of the scale. So, like a 2x or a 5x or a 10x multiplier of what our standard rate limits would be, depending upon the traffic patterns that you have. And as your organization grows year over year, you can review the multiplier that suits your organization. And the third thing is the burst traffic. And for the burst traffic, really, like I said, if it was planned, like if it was like an airline or where you're doing a deal and you know that because of the deal, there are lots of people going to come, we can work with you to kind of monitor that. But when it's unplanned, is when you have to kind of look at dynamic scale, and PS can provide some suggestions and workarounds on how to make sure that you are providing full service during these times. So that's kind of what I've run into in the field. Thank you, Chael.
Incredibly helpful for quite a few people, I would imagine. Thank you for that's a comprehensive answer. Joe, we'll stay with you for the next question. It's around customer identity. So once again, what's the best practice for consolidating multiple user stories into one identity on the Okta platform?
Right. So interestingly, I've been doing a lot of state government implementations, and typically when you go to avail of state services, like your unemployment or your some sort of benefits or your fishing license, what we've seen is all of this is a siloed system, right? So I could be a citizen. I live in Texas. And this is just an example. So as a citizen in the state of Texas, I would go to one application to get my fishing license, another application to do, if I had unemployment related stuff, another application for benefits. And the same person has to remember these multiple identities, and it's so frustrating for me. If I had one common identity, that would be great. I go to this one portal where I can access all the services provided by the state to me. So the key to getting there is these systems have existed for a really long time. These are legacy systems and they have these individual stores. How do we merge them? Right? That's a very interesting use case. And there are two approaches. One approach that I like and that I've recommended to my customers is when you move to Okta, you create your identity in Okta, and then all these individual applications, you redirect the user to go into Okta. So if they come to Okta for the first time, they create their identity within Okta, and then from Okta, you can go and claim your identity in various sources. So that claiming process is custom, that we can help you, work that logic through. And basically, I log into Okta, and now I want to go and claim my identity in the unemployment portal. So I go through some sort of verification, and the identity in the unemployment portal gets tied to my Okta identity. You turn off native authentication in the unemployment platform, and I can only access that platform from Okta via SSO. Similarly, if I want to go and claim my identity in the, whatever issues my fishing licenses, I would go there, claim the account, it gets tied to my Okta profile, and then going forward, I can only access that via single sign-on from Okta. So that's kind of I would call it a managed way to roll this out. So as you bring applications onto the Okta platform, you have that identity already there. It's just a matter of tying that identity to your Okta profile. And you can stagger that and give enough time for these individual applications to move over to Okta. So that's an approach that I would recommend.
That's great. Thank you. I imagine it's issues that just about everybody can relate to that's listening. Everybody that's listening to this call certainly can relate to that experience. Pragya, the next question will be to you. It's around workflow. How do Okta workflows help organizations extend beyond the existing Okta functionality?
Yeah, absolutely. So traditionally, we have seen our customers come to us with many life cycle management use cases, primarily understanding, say, joiner, mover, leaver scenarios in an organization, whether it's related to your employees, to contractors, or even to external identities, just like what Joe just pointed out to us with regards to the Texas use case, right? So in a similar scenario, what we have traditionally done is provide you multiple integrations and connectors to be able to send these identities downstream to other applications to manage the user creations, the updates, the deactivations as soon as their status gets updated in Okta. But our customers have time and again told us that that may have not been sufficient. There were times when customers were looking for additional connectors or also extending beyond what was already available. For instance, this could vary based on the businesses that we were working with. A legal firm might want to check if a certain user is on a litigation hold before actually deactivating their box license, or if a user was actually a system administrator in one of the downstream systems, we want to ensure that all the access was revoked for them before we move them into a terminated, say, a group, for example. So these are the kind of scenarios that the users were looking for, and that's what really Workflows has come in to plug that gap and help address the flexibility back to the customers, provide that to the customers in a very much of a no code approach. The customers can easily build this out with a graphical interface where we provide a number of event triggers and uh, basically a flow designer that allows them to put together functions and different events that can actually interact with all these different systems downstream. So we rolled out workflows over the last year, and we've seen hundreds of customers use workflows across these different scenarios, whether it is custom provisioning, custom deprovisioning, bringing in many more new connectors into Okta. But at the same time, workflows now also enables you to enhance beyond this specific use case, and they send out notifications to an admin or the user's manager when a user is joining the company. We can also do time-based integrations. So a lot of times our customers have asked us that they want to actually be able to initiate a process 6 months after somebody has been deactivated in the system and do a cleanup of tasks. So that kind of a scheduled process is now possible through workflows, and I see more and more of our customers leveraging that at this time. One more use case that is really very heavily used in this day is the extension of our HR as a source capabilities to allow users to have resolve username conflicts before creating their user identities in Okta. And I'm sure a lot of our customers are going to agree that this was sort of a sore point that we are now able to solve with workflows. So we've definitely seen this over the past year since we launched Workflows at last Octane, and very soon you're going to see the same impact with the customer identity use cases as well. So you will be able to leverage workflows for scenarios where your user, your end users are sort of selecting your basically a consent management form, and if they sort of select the consent and we track that information, we can then provide access to an elevated system once the consent is approved from the user, or even add them to a marketing campaign once the customer has approved that form. So many more such scenarios are going to be helpful in the future with workflows.
Yes, thank you, Pragya. It's very exciting for our business analyst friends to help streamline things. It certainly makes the majority of the Okta functionality accessible through them and supporting some complex processes, as you said. Next question, Dave, moving over to you. It's about Okta Access Gateway. I have an internal SAML app that I want to make available to external users, but I don't want to put the application in the DMZ or have to provide a VPN access to these users. Can Okta help with this challenge?
Yes, absolutely, Chael. This is actually a great use case for Okta's Access Gateway, which we announced just a couple years ago at Octane, actually. And while we were targeting replacement of web access management technologies and other on-premise type problems, what we've discovered is it can solve other types of solutions that are needed for our customers as well. And in this particular case, we have a design pattern that we've come up with called SAML Passthrough. That this is exactly problem requires no application changes. And so it's really neat to see it at work today. Effectively, you leave your application where it is and you deploy OAG in DMZ where you don't want to put your application. With this, all you have to do is have an external URL that's pointed directly at OAG. You can do a SAML integration with Okta Access Gateway to make sure that the application it has authentication and authorization behind it before ever actually getting to it. And then OAG does nothing more than a SAML integration with the application that simply proxying, reverse proxying through it. So you're connecting your external users through your DMZ, through your OAG into that application, and just allowing that application to continue to utilize its traditional SAML sign-on with Okta today. So it's really neat. It's great to see these use cases coming to light and seeing OAG solving all kinds of problems for our customers today.
Yeah, thank you, Dave. It's always interesting. I look forward to this every year, and there's always one or two areas in here in an answer that I learned something I didn't know. That's that's great to hear. Okay, Pragya, over to you for the next question. It's around MFA, multi-factor authentication. What adaptive multi-factor authentication best practices are customer identity customers using to protect their end users?
Yeah, so the traditional MFA has been very working very well for our workforce identity customers. But what I see with the customer identity use cases is that the traditional scenarios may not be as suited because they may kind of add a little more friction to the whole authentication process, making the whole ramp up for your end users a little more difficult. So that's where adaptive MFA really steps in and helps our customer identity use cases because it gives you the flexibility without cutting short on the security of your end users. And primarily, how this works is by maintaining a risk profile within Okta for these end users. Over the vast data that we have across the millions of users who are signing into our systems from different devices, from different locations, it's possible for Okta now to use big data analytics and be able to build strong risk behavior profiles that help us understand if a certain login is low risk versus high risk, depending upon a certain user uh, parameters like the location, the browser that the user may be signing in, and many other such factors, right? So these risk profiles are now available to our customers through the adaptive MFA feature, which allows our customers to set up policies using the high risk or the low risk profiles. So you may want to allow certain users to access your low risk applications with no additional second factor authentication, but in case of high risk only, you want to prompt certain users. Also, with adaptive MFA, you have a larger section of MFA factors now available to your end users, which are much more suited to these kind of scenarios where you are reaching out to general public identity. In addition to the risk profiles that Okta maintains and builds and manages, there is also the behavior detection profile feature that allows the administrators to be able to manage certain policies that they want to really track. They can also build dynamic zones, geolocation based policies as well, blocking users from certain countries where they may not be operating and don't expect any logins to come from. So that's why adaptive MFA has been really instrumental in extending that feature while also maintaining as a low level touch point with the customer, but still keeping that security in place. One more feature that does really help our customers along with these different aspects is the threat insights that Okta is now able to provide to our customers. Okta tracks the malicious IPs that may have occurred as logins that we have seen trying to log in but are sort of marked as malicious IPs. We're able to track these in our systems, and we give the administrators the ability to block these from logging in. So across a breadth of these different features, the customers are now able to protect their end users much better without adding that additional overhead of having to log in through one more system when it's not really needed.
Yeah, thank you, Pragya. I think one could argue from the questions we get as a services team, MFA is one of the, if not the hotspot. And on that note, Joe, next question is on MFA as well. It's to you. For secure environments where the device is not available, which secure MFA factors would you suggest?
So then this is an interesting question. I've come across use cases where the secure environment is like a clean room where, it can be, a manufacturing unit or a lab where devices are not allowed inside, right? But you still want that extra level of security while accessing systems. I've also come across use cases where it could be like inmates, right? And these days you are providing access to learning materials like LMS systems and all of that to this population as well. And you cannot have devices in this situation either. So the traditional non-device based MFA has been security question. But as we all aware, as an industry, we're trying to move away from using security questions. There are some situations where it's unavoidable, where uh, devices are not allowed, where the access is highly restricted based on the kind of population. So then that's why Okta still has that there. For things like clean rooms, we've come up with, actually, we had a hackathon. Dave and I were on the same team. So we kind of built custom solutions that could be integrated into Okta. So things like um, uh, one of the solutions was like a bingo card that we built that has random OTPs. And then when the user logs in as an MFA, it's one of those numbers that they have to enter as an OTP. So you can decide what that custom solution is going to be to give that extra level of access, and professional services can work with you to come up with the logic and build that out, and then integrate that into Okta to be used as the step up factor. So there, like, it's not out of the box, because these are very what should I say? These are very specific use cases, but we have come across these and we have solution for them. So do get in touch if you have the use case like this.
Yes, thank you. Dave, next question to you. Pulling up a little bit, general architecture best practice question. I'm hearing a lot about Safari blocking third-party cookies with the latest update uh, to Safari Intelligent Tracking Prevention. Can this impact my current or future projects? I think we know the answer to that. What do I need to be concerned about, and how do I address it?
Yeah, and this is actually something that all our customers really need to be aware of. The browser cookie management technology is an ever evolving landscape with respect to what they're permitting and they do not. Safari is absolutely leading the way lately with the latest policies, but Firefox and Chrome have already committed to making the same changes. The impact here is for any integration with Okta that is utilizing APIs that might drop or modify the Okta cookie, like the Okta session cookie. This is typically login pages or session refresh flows and logouts. In general, as long as these calls are occurring on the same domain as your Okta tenant, you'll be okay. But if they're not, they could stop working correctly, and that's obviously a concern for all of us. The solution could be as simple as updating your Okta tenant to use a custom domain that matches the domain of your applications. If you're strictly using out of the box Okta login pages, you should be fine. You don't have any concerns to worry about. However, if you're not, you should spend a few minutes and look to see if you have any cross-domain calls occurring that's using cookies, touching them, what have you, like Okta's auth-on APIs and session APIs. Of course, Okta professional services are here and can help if assistance is needed with that.
Okay, great. No, thank you, Dave. I know that's come up quite a bit in the last year, and certainly it's good to proactively educate our audience on the impact of that, because it can be pretty severe pretty quick. Moving on, um, Pragya, this question is for you. It's around delivery assurance. What should I know about the delivery assurance services offering?
I get that question quite a bit here as well. So, in terms of the delivery assurance, this is something that our team rolled out pretty recently, and the question comes how this is different from what PS has been doing traditionally. Who can leverage this use case? So, what we saw over the past few years is our customers are engaging with Okta in many different ways. Some of them may have a steady services hands-on team on the ground to help them right from the scratch to the rollout of their different initiatives. But a lot of times, customers are probably doing a lot of the heavy lifting by themselves. It could be because of either scale reasons, it could be the volume or the longevity of the projects themselves, irrespective of what the scenario may be. But the customers are at times pretty much on their own, and when they're really trying to get a few things working, there may be scenarios that are absolutely new to their teams and may have not seen basically resolved before their go lives. What we have seen in these scenarios is that the customer is definitely reaching out to us at a very late stage. So we would like to fix that proactively and making sure that the customers feel encouraged to engage with our teams upfront. That's really the scenario that we want to address with delivery assurance, because uh, what we want to really help out with the customers is making sure that we are everywhere uh, with them at every stage of the path that they're taking, making sure that they understand the risks that are involved at each of these stages, ensuring that our team has sufficient visibility into their use cases. Because even after implementing thousands of customer use cases, we see a new one every day. And we want our teams to be working and helping these customers right up front where they may need that help. So, with delivery assurance, the customers now have the capability to engage with us to do assessments right from the initiation stage, planning, readiness, to the design, as well as the build and the deployment, making sure that the customer is has vetted out these use cases, has vetted out the test scenarios that they're working with, and our team also provides regular deliverables at each of these stages. Traditionally, we also offered something called advisory services. The way I would think about delivery assurance is providing that a more of a holistic viewpoint, because for advisory services, sometimes the customers may have engaged with us right at the time of deployment or only for a specific use case like launching Okta Access Gateway. But now with delivery assurance, you have that holistic viewpoint. So right from where the initiation of the idea from the business impact point of view, we are there with you so you can engage with us. And this works not just for the customers, but for our partners as well. So in cases where our partners may be helping out the customers and they want to engage with us right away, delivery assurance can be the way for them to engage with us and making sure that the customer is getting the right uh, is feedback right from the start.
Yeah, it's a great summary. I look at this as this allows our customers and our partners, to your point, to be able to access our best practice methodology throughout the life cycle of a project, as well as accessing the experts like you see on this panel to make sure or to ensure that everything is going along a very predictable path in a predictable way to maximize success. So, yes, thank you very much. Final question here. It's the only one I actually get to answer. It's around our education business. And the question is around certifications, is Okta planning to expand its certification offerings? And the short answer is yes. I believe the first that you will really see is around, we have 4 certifications now. three on the workforce side and one on the SIAM side. The first certification enhancement or addition I think that you'll see is for the certified technical architect. And I think the most well known in the industry is the Salesforce Certified Technical Architect program, which I tend to equate to a PhD in that particular technology. It is not a multiple choice exam. It will be the certification will come from a panel of experts, as you see here. Candidates would be given a scenario and have to present to that panel what their solution or their proposed solution to that scenario would be. That I think is the reason we're focusing at that high level is as you've heard from a lot of these questions and other announcements at Octane, our functionality and our ability to execute is going very deep and very wide pretty quickly. So it really becomes critical to make sure that you've got your architecture decisions made up front, they're made the right way, and they're made in line with how Okta is assuming things will work. And this is a way to make sure that from an objective standpoint, if someone has the Okta Certified Technical Architect certification or banner, they very well know what they're doing, and they're up to speed on across the entire platform. Look for that later this year. It takes a while to put that together for obvious reasons, but we're actively working on it. There's a whole bunch of other badges, if you will, certifications with a small c that we'll do around some of our products like Okta Access Gateway. We talked a few of those, but those will all be coming. We will absolutely enhance our overall education certification out there. So it makes it much more less subjective and more objective when you go to hire some experts in the field. You'll know exactly what they know and what they're capable of. Okay, thank you all. That was our final question of the session. Please visit us at the virtual Customer First Hub. We will have professional service experts like the ones you see here available during that virtual booth time. Feel free to come in and ask any questions that you didn't hear any answers to here. Feel free to come and ask that. And again, thank you for your time and enjoy the rest of the conference.